My superpower is engineering. I've been a roboticist almost all my life now. I think engineering is just as creative as the arts. Engineers, we solve problems. It impacts the world. It makes a difference. Without IEEE, I don't think I would have the network that I have. Anyone can get involved with IEEE USA at any time. There's an immense amount of value for anyone at any career stage.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another IEEE USA Livestream webinar, Career Happiness, 7 Steps to Get It and Keep It. I'm your host, Jonathan Cho. This is the second part of a 2-part series presented by Julie Bauke, Chief Career Happiness Officer of the Bauke Group. Julie believes that we all deserve careers that serve our lives. Her 30-plus years of experience working with executives, professional athletes, and career-focused people of all industries and professions brings practical inspiration on how to live our best career lives from start to finish. Her firm, the Bauke Group, is focused on bringing career development and engagement strategies to individuals and organizations. Julie is a sought-after national media expert, workshop facilitator, and keynote speaker, and has been featured by more than 100 prominent media outlets, including CNBC, Money Magazine, and weekly TV segments with the Scripps News Network. She's also the author of the book Stop Peeing on Your Shoes, Avoiding the 7 Mistakes That Screw Up Your Job Search, and is a co-creator of Career Catalyst, an intentional career management experience. Without further ado, I will now pass it off to our presenter. Welcome back, Julie. We're very excited to hear the rest of what you have in store for our audience today.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back. I'm so glad to be here for part 2. I hope that you've done some thinking from our first meeting 2 weeks ago, and you've done some processing of the kind of stuff we talked about. Today, we're going to go through steps 5, 6, and 7. And if you are new today, part 1 is available to go back and watch. You'll be watching it in reverse, but that's okay too, because it all makes sense inside of the career happiness framework that we teach. So 7 steps to intentional career management, 7 steps to career happiness, 7 steps to moving toward more of what you want. I think what's so important here to realize is that career management, moving your career, analyzing your career, pivoting, all that stuff, it's a career-long process. We are so far past the days of climb on a ladder and just keep climbing rung to rung until you're allowed to retire at 62 and then you can have fun. It's a different world and I'm here for it. I think it's wonderful. And so, but we still need a process, and it's something no one ever taught us. And that's what I teach. How do you figure out what career happiness is for you? Not for your siblings, not for your parents, not for your coworkers, for you. It's a very different conversation. We all have a different definition of career happiness. I know you have people in your lives, when you hear about their jobs, you think, oh my heavens, that sounds horrible. And then other people where you think that sounds cool. And we all are allowed to have those preferences. We're not meant to be just one thing. So as a reminder, one of the things that we talk about, and here are the 7 steps. The first 4 we went over last time: self-knowledge and awareness. It all starts here. Reputation management, alignment with organization needs. How do you fit today and going forward in your organization? What matters to you personally? Career goal setting, network building and management, and intentional career conversations. So we're going to start with number 5 today. But I think it's always smart. I remind everybody, even random strangers on the street, and I'm barely kidding, about the career happiness formula. How happy are you right now? I love to use scale of 1 to 10. And I use the career happiness formula as a diagnostic to help you figure out what's missing. Not unlike going to take your car into the mechanic and you say, it's not working right. They're going to ask you a lot of questions. Are you hearing a banging under the hood? Is your tire, do you appear to have a flat tire? Does it not start? The same thing when you feel unhappy, when you feel out of line, when you feel disengaged at work, you got to figure out why. And the career happiness formula is something we use to help you figure out what those things are. And so is it you're not doing work you like to do? You don't feel competent, which is the other one. You don't feel like you're doing it well. You don't feel like you're as good at it as you could be at something else. Is it pay? Do you feel like your career doesn't have a great forward motion? It's not going to be needed in the future? Or are you in the wrong place? Right job, wrong place. You can be in the right job at the wrong place. You can be in the right job in the wrong department in the right place. So you've got to figure out which of those things is the thing you need to fix before you can truly move up that 1 to 10 scale toward getting closer to the 10. And so yeah, this is where we start. Then when you step back and say, okay, what do I need to be doing? Career goal setting. Okay. I think I alluded to this last time. This is one of those things that it feels like this big hairy thing, like career goals. I don't have career goals. What should they be? Because somehow, somewhere along the way, we internalize that the only noble career goals are, I want to start an app. I want to build an app that's going to end world hunger. And we feel like if our goal is to simply learn more about something or move towards something or pivot towards something, it doesn't feel big enough. So I really, really, really want to dispel that myth right now. Career goals are really about continuously working towards something that matters to you. And that's, believe me, everything I talk about, you can put "to you" on the end of almost every sentence I say, because this really is about what works for you. You're continuously working towards something that matters to you. And only you get to decide what that is. And I think sometimes we get really stuck, especially when we're in that sort of that space where we think, I don't know what matters to me. I think you do. You just have learned sometimes to keep these things inside. So when we set goals, we want them to be focused and flexible. And then understand, what do I need to do those things? So if I say, I want to get to, I'm sitting here in Cincinnati and I want to get to Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm going to drive, that's my goal, get to Omaha. I know how I'm going to get there in my car. The GPS, how I set Google Maps, that's my how. Those are what I need to do those things. It's a long drive, so I'm probably going to need snacks, right? I'm probably going to need luggage. So what is it how do I need to get there? And when the goal is too big, too overwhelming, like I'm going to end world hunger, I'm going to get people off the streets, and I'm going to invent something that does this or that, that's huge. And so sometimes that's when we curl up in a ball and say, I can't get there because I don't know how to get there. So it is okay to say, my goal is to learn more about this technology. My goal is to learn what the most critical AI tools and platforms are for this company, for my department, for specifically what I do. I am going to meet 2 people in different departments in my company so I can understand better what the company does, big picture, and what the goals are. Those, I hope, feel really doable to you. And we're going to talk a little bit about how do you get started toward those. But really, it's setting something that says, I want more of, I want less of, I want to move into a role where I manage people. I want to look for options in my career because I know I don't want to manage people. Those are goals. I've had people say to me, well, I don't have goals. And what I say to them is, well, then it sounds like your goal is to get a goal, because you need to be working towards something. If you aren't working towards something, then it's just really hard for the days to fly by and you feel like your career and your work really isn't mattering. It doesn't matter. When I say work towards something, again, it literally could be something, I want to learn this. That's it. Okay. So we want to set some career goals. And then you have to, we're going to talk, step 7 is about having those intentional career conversations. And part of that, when we go back to step number 3, if your career goals fit or are relevant as your organization looks what it needs moving forward, that's great. But it's also possible that you get to this point, you go through steps 1 through 4 and you say, ooh, what I want to do doesn't exist here, isn't needed here, isn't a part of the future plans. At that point, you're at a crossroads and you need to decide. Do I slightly adjust my goal? And how will I feel about that? If you really get excited about thinking about your goal, it might be time to find it elsewhere. And maybe it's even just a different department. So getting really clear on what those things are, and then figuring out how does this goal align with what my organization needs? Once you understand how those two things come together, it's a lot easier to have those conversations with your leaders about how you might get there. And then being accountable, literally, we talk about once you decide what your career goal is, some of us, just the way we're wired, we sit back and we think about it. We sleep on it. We put it under our pillow. We talk to our very close contacts about it with the "am I crazy" conversation. Some of us immediately jump into action. Neither is right or wrong. You have to just once you start getting that, I'm really fascinated by this particular tool. And I think it could really change the way we do our work, or it could change something I care about, how we empty dog shelters and save dogs, whatever it is that you're passionate about. Once you start to really kind of get clarity on that, it's really hard to stay paralyzed because you get kind of excited. And once you put it out there, things start to come your way. And so sometimes an accountability partner is the best thing. Someone who has something they want to pursue that you can help them. Someone where you challenge each other. So setting goals. So here's an example. I did a presentation at a soccer coaches conference. I just like this goal. So even though I know none of you are probably soccer coaches. So it was a bunch of soccer coaches, and this is a career goal example that somebody worked out. So I wanted to share it. I'm looking to leverage my Division I assistant coaching experience to be part of building a smaller program, D1 or D3, D2 or D3 to national prominence. My strengths in recruiting, overcoming key challenges, and game planning position me well for this next step. In my next role, I want to take more of a leadership role in recruiting and developing the culture of the team. Okay. So if I had someone sitting across from me who said this was their goal, I immediately start thinking, who do I know? Who can I connect them with? What ideas do I have for them? So this person says, hey, I'm D1, but I want to go down to D2 or D3 to have a broader impact instead of a smaller impact that I'm currently having in a bigger school or a bigger program. So that's self-knowledge, that's clarity. And from that, then you can understand, who do I need to know? What do I need to learn? How can I go about preparing myself for this? Now, on the last slide, I said focused and flexible. It's certainly possible that along the way, this person could find something and go, ooh, I never knew that was even a thing. I'd like to go do that for a while. And so when we say, I want to do this, I think we have to still keep ourselves open for information that contrasts with what we said we wanted. Now that I have more information, I really like this over here. And this is where I really think I want to pause and say something. A lot of times when we declare a major in college, I want to be an engineer. I want to be a logistics manager. I want to manage distribution or purchasing. I want to be an accountant. I want to be in marketing. I want to be a doctor. Those are decisions we make when we're young. And we feel sometimes stuck, committed to that. And that keeps us in a place where we say, well, I said I wanted to be an engineer. I said I wanted to be a doctor. I'm halfway through medical school and I'm miserable. I guess I have to be miserable for the next 30 years. And that faulty thinking, I think, is one of the core things that is why we have such a high number of people who are in jobs that they don't like, who are miserable. And I'm just telling you, if you're miserable at work, you're probably not lots of fun at home either, or in your personal life. And so if you're hearing this saying, what I'm doing, it's fine, but I wish I was doing something else. Really, rarely are we too old to change direction. And so if you feel like you're in maybe the wrong role, maybe you're this kind of engineer and you want to be this kind of engineer, that's so doable. You may need to stay on, you may need to take a step back or make another move or get some additional training, but so much is available online. So what I'm saying is, I think this is on my mind because I've talked to so many people like this recently who said, I just made the wrong, both my parents are mechanical engineers, so I'm a mechanical engineer. And we just don't have a lot of guidance when we're young. And so I really want to encourage you to really think about your career goals in a broader sense, not just climbing a ladder rung by rung so I can be a senior VP of engineering for a global company. If that's your goal, great, but it doesn't have to be your goal. First of all, there aren't enough of those roles for everybody, but really think more creatively and broadly about what you want, not what society, your manager, the people around you, your parents, your friends, your colleagues tell you need to want. Now, once you say, all right, I heard this in a little introductory IEEE video. I heard a lot of this language and I've made my little heart happy because the ability to build relationships is absolutely key. And I think it's really easy to lose sight of that because so much of our language is technology. You apply on job boards. What's the applicant tracking system look like? People are connecting over here. They're on LinkedIn, and we're doing everything by Zoom. Real human connection is what moves your career forward. Now, when all these job boards came out, and everyone was like, oh, so that's how it's going to be moving forward. People are going to get their jobs on job boards. You know what's really interesting? The proportion of like how people get jobs, it's still 2/3 or more get their jobs through networking. So a little bit of misdirection there when all these job boards popped up. And so your ability to build relationships is absolutely the most critical component of your getting what you want out of your career. And I know there's at least one person on this call is like, but I'm an introvert. I can't do that. Sure you can. And I'm going to tell you why and how. So first of all, let's redefine networking. It's not showing up, shaking hands with random people, peppering the room with your contact information, your business cards, back when we had business cards everywhere, meeting everybody in the room. That's exhausting. I'm comfortable with it, and I'm an extrovert, and I find it exhausting. So I don't expect other people to love it. I've known a few weirdos who love it, but so when we show up at a lunch, let's say you have an employee resource group inside your organization who they invite you to lunches once a month. And you're like, I don't know anybody. I don't want to go. Well, you already have something in common. You work for the same company. It's going to be a lot easier than you think. But my definition of networking is this: intentionally building mutually beneficial relationships that support your goals. Intentionally building. So this means that not everybody's a great networking contact for you. And they shouldn't be. I mean, that's why we don't just ask for help from random strangers unless we're really desperate. That's why we don't ask the lady behind us in the checkout line to take our kid to soccer. We build mutually beneficial relationships that support our goals. Now, I tricked you here because that support our goals. If you don't have some sort of goal you're working toward, then networking is small talk because you don't know what else to talk about. But if you have a goal of learning more about, let's say, a tool it's an AI, it's fairly new, it's AI, you think it could be really valuable in how you work. If that's your goal, there are communities online, there are places you can go, there are people online who can help teach you, there are courses online you can take. And so when you have that goal in mind, it's sort of like if you decide you're going to buy a red car, all of a sudden all the cars are red, it seems like. And it works that way with networking too. Once you start activating your goal, then you know who to talk to. Stopping somebody at Starbucks at the next table who's sitting there trying to get work done and saying, do you know about this tool, is not a good use of your time. And I'm going to show you kind of on a chart what that looks like. So connecting with people in the career goal I showed, If I'm a D1 assistant coach and I want to be a head coach, D2 or D3, one of my best contacts would be someone who's already made a move like that. Or maybe someone who is a head coach at a D2 or D3 school who has some knowledge about what they need, so I know what gaps I need to go back and fill. So when we are focused in our conversations, then we are focused in our action. So it's not about knowing everybody. You can have a very small but mighty group of networking contacts that you help them and they help you. Notice the center of that statement: mutually beneficial relationships. Believe me, I could go for hours about people who did not understand the mutually beneficial part. And sometimes when you're really young, you feel like I don't have anything to give. Like, I bet you do. I'll just speak for myself. When it comes to technology, it's just not, if you have parents or grandparents my age even, it's probably not their strong suit. And so there's things that you can do to help people in your life. But I will also tell you that if you do networking the right way, people aren't going to be like, okay, I did that for you. What are you going to do for me? It's not like I gave you a contact, I introduced you to Fred, and now I'm like, okay, what you got for me? But what I do expect is that if I ever need something that you're in a position to help with, that you return my call and try your best. I've absolutely helped people that when I needed help, they didn't return my calls. Or you could tell they had no intention of making it mutually beneficial. All they cared about was how much they could get from me. That's not mutually beneficial relationship. So what you do is you're listening for that opportunity. Let's say the person's like, let's say you meet somebody in a coffee shop who knows a lot about this particular thing you're trying to learn. And they mention, oh my gosh, I love a good cup of coffee. I've not been in this part of town before. And you say, you know what? I spend a lot of time here. I'm happy to give you a list of the best coffee shops in this area. That'd be great. That's a give. May not feel like it, but it is. Then they're more likely to help you. Mutually beneficial relationships. Honestly, it's really all relationships should be mutually beneficial. But when we start talking about networking, we just freeze up and say, oh, I'm not doing that. I did have a guy one time I was working with that said, it was years and years ago. He said, yeah, I'm not going to do any networking. I'm just going to apply for jobs online. I refuse to do any networking. I'm like, okay, well, just know that. Then your job search is going to be much longer. Just know that. If you're okay with that. And he just was so afraid that he was unwilling to learn. So this is really where the crux of this happens. Now, when you look at what does that look like? Okay. First is, who do you already know? With a lot of things you're trying to learn, you already know people that can help you with that. But you're probably not having the right conversations. You're not asking for help. And women, as for the women on this call, we are the worst. We are the worst. We are not afraid to ask for help with getting somebody somewhere, to getting our kid to school, helping maybe in our mom network, getting our kids to school, or a dad network. But when it comes to helping with work kind of things, we just aren't typically as good at it. Whereas, let's just say as willing to step into it. So who do you already know? It's really easy to look at your contacts and say, well, she doesn't know anything about that. How do you know? When you start sharing your goals, you allow your network to put up their hands and say, oh, I know about that. I don't know if you know, but Fred's wife, Mary, knows a lot about that. I can introduce you to Mary. I'm in book club with her. All of a sudden you have a contact because you shared your goal instead of keeping it up here and hoping that Career Fairy was going to come and help you figure it out. So when you look at, here's my career goal. So here's where I'm going. We're getting in the car. We're turning on Google Maps. Here, I want to get to Omaha. What do I need to know to get to Omaha successfully? Well, I might talk to other people who've driven to Omaha. What are the best times of day? What are the good restaurants and hotels along the way? Are there people who live in Omaha I want to meet? So you look at where you're trying to go, where you are, where you're trying to go, and then you look at those gaps. You look at, what do I need to know? Who do I need to know to make that trip more smooth? Because why would I go through Austin, Texas to get to Omaha if I don't have to? So it's the same way with a goal. If you know what you want to do, and maybe start really small, start to reach out and figure out, who do I already know? Have I shared my goals with them? And then who do I need to add to my network? Who do I need to add? Who am I missing? And then are there people in my network that I need to get back in touch with? Just because you haven't talked to somebody for a year or so, it doesn't mean you can't reach out, as long as you don't present yourself as a user. And there are people like that. We all know that. Identify your top 5 to 7 networking contacts based on your goals. And be clear. What are you looking for help with? I have networked with people who say things like, I don't know, I just want to talk to you because I don't know what to do with my life. What am I supposed to do with that? I can't help you figure out what to do with your life. I can figure out what to help do with your career. But I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. What do you think I should do? I don't know. That's a lot of pressure, isn't it? But I know you've come to people and being clear. I talked to a guy one time, he was in a job search, and he said, networking doesn't work. And I said, okay, tell me about that. And he said, I've networked with 120 people. I said, interesting. Well, what are you looking to do? And he couldn't tell me. He couldn't tell me what his Omaha was. If I can't tell you where I'm trying to go, I can't expect help to get there. If I said to a friend, I want to drive around the country a little bit, where do you think I should stop? Where do you think I should eat? Can't help me because I'm not specific enough. So you want to be really clear. I'm going to give you a visual here. I'm going to give you this visual, okay? Because I know a lot of people who are in technology do tend to be more introverted. So I want to spend a little more time on networking than I normally would. So I want you to think about, I love concentric circles. I could use concentric circles with the 7 steps or with a lot of things, because I do believe that all of it starts with you. So if you think about yourself, there are different levels of relationships. There are people who maybe you went to college with and have stayed in great touch with, or you were peers at Boeing, and you've stayed in touch, and you're in a couple of professional groups together. And then you have people that you've met once or twice. They know who you are, et cetera. So I'm going to show you what these different categories are. And it shows you that everybody you know that recognizes you, or you recognize each other's name, is on here somewhere. Anybody who's not on one of these rungs is a stranger. There's a lot of strangers in the world. So the goal is to not bring everybody you meet or everybody you've ever met onto this diagram. There's people you knew 20 years ago. There's people I knew 20 years ago that you'll never reach out to. And I wouldn't either, because they aren't relevant anymore. So this is not about everybody I've ever met, but it's about, who do I know now? And then when you look at that, who are the people that can be most helpful? So, I'm going to go back. I'm going to show you. There's a chart here on what these definitions are. Okay, so first of all, I want you to broaden your thinking around what networking actually is. You'd be surprised how many people or know stuff that can help you. The lady who lives next door, brother, might be the best contact for you. But if you aren't having that conversation, you'll never know. So let's start in the middle. A lot of companies have mentoring programs. And so those people maybe who are officially assigned to you as a mentor, or you are their mentor, or even loosely kind of someone who's sort of an informal mentor of yours, someone who, you two just really get along and respect each other. And you go to each other for issues. You help each other for situations. You might be good at one thing. He might be good at something else. And so you help each other. And those are great mentors, whether they are called your mentor or not. Those are the people who are your champions. Okay. Those are the people who are in the front row of your bleachers. Could be a current boss. It could be a past boss. It could be a colleague. It could be someone at another company. Remember, this is not just about who do you know inside your company, but it's who do you know? Who do you know who'd take your call and be happy to help you? And I promise you, more people would be happy to help you than you think. absolutely know that for a fact. I've been doing this for 6 billion years. And I'm just telling you, that is true every single time. So when you get one step out and you say, okay, those people are advocates. They know of your professional work. They can and do speak of you favorably. I might be in a conversation with somebody who says, man, I'm really looking for someone to help me with something, with this. And I say, oh, you know who's really good at that? Jamal is really good at that. Oh, really? Would you connect us? Yeah, absolutely. I know Jamal's really good at that because I worked with Jamal. Okay. So an advocate is somebody who's experienced you. They've experienced you in some way. Your colleagues go one level out. They know you. You might be in the same company. You may have worked with them on something peripherally or not, or you just know of each other, who their expertise. So you know each other. And these are going to be the people who say, in this example I just gave, well, Jamal does that. I've not personally worked with him, but I've heard from others that he does this. So you see how I'm qualifying my recommendation? So this is how people, again, you in the center, these are the people in your life and career who will speak differently of you based on their experience with you. And there are people that, for some reason, I'm just popped to mind. And so, we do this we do this personally too. I was at an event about a month ago, and someone who's about 20 years younger than I am, she's single, she's really wonderful, just deserves the best. And there was a guy there, and I just got this weird gut. And I said to her, hey, are you dating or considering dating? She's, well, maybe. And I said, no. I said, I know way too much about this guy from sources that I trust. And I don't want you, please do not, because I think he's dangerous. She's like, okay. So I know that she's not going to go back to him and say, hey, Julie Bauke says you're dangerous. What's up with that? But we look out for each other, just like I might also have said, oh, you're thinking of dating that guy? He's awesome. A friend of mine dated him, have nothing but great things to say about him. So if you think about it, think about your personal lives and how we look out for each other. It's the same thing professionally. You just have to be willing to speak out. Go out a level. Associates. People know of you and you might talk at the coffee pot, or when you see each other on the street, but you may not, these could be neighbors in fact, but you may not ever talk about work things. You may only talk about the kids, Thanksgiving coming up. What are you doing? Did you see we have a new lamppost? Whatever. You're having conversations, but you're never talking about professional things because you just never have. Those are okay people to have conversations with. So, hey, what do you do? Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Do you know so-and-so? So what you do is you can start to move your relationship from the personal to the professional realm. And then acquaintances, you wave maybe across the grocery store, across the street, at a meeting, but you really don't know. You say you don't know much about each other other than just the very basics. And so when we look at everybody we know would fit in one of these rungs by definition. So my question to you is, when we look about what we're going to do, bullet 3 there. Given your goals, who do you know? Who do you already know? And who do you need to meet? Who are the people in your network who are the most likely to know people that you need to know? So the conversation could go something like this. I'm looking to understand more about this. I'm looking to talk to people who work at this company. I'm looking to talk to people who've made a career change from this to this. I'm looking to talk to people with an expertise in this. Do you know of anybody, or is there anybody I should talk to that might? Those are perfectly acceptable conversations to have. People love to be helpful. But remember, be available when they need help. Always say thank you and always close the loop. So in other words, go back and say, thank you for that introduction to Greg. He was super helpful. Let me know how I can help you. This is how business gets done. And this is how you manage your career, is through things like this. Okay. So now I'd love to be able to tell you that all you have to do is take all this and put it on a piece of paper, or put it on your phone, put it on a notes app, stick it under your pillow, When you wake up the next morning, the career fairy comes and leaves you a quarter and whatever you need. And if I could invent that, I would live on an island and we probably wouldn't be having this webinar. But it's work. It's work to move. I saw this meme on Facebook, which of course is the source of all great sayings. The other day it said, change is hard, growth is hard, but not as hard is staying in a place you no longer belong. And I think that's true personally and professionally. So you have to get moving. Now, when I look at the 7 steps, there are, what I love about these 7 steps, and I'm gonna show you my Career Catalyst program in a minute, and I'm gonna give you a really good discount if you want to purchase it so you can own this process forever. But what I love about it is you don't have to do it all at once. I know from doing this work for 20 zillion years, 25 to be exact, that it's hard, that it takes a lot of thinking, it takes confidence, it takes overcoming all kinds of fears. But as you move through it, you might decide, okay, I'm going to do step 1. I'm going to do all the homework in step 1. I'm going to work on the workbook. And then I'm going to take a break for the holidays. I'm going to think about that over the holidays. Then in January, you might decide to step into step 2 and 3. So you can do this one step at a time. What I think about this process is like building something, like getting something together and like putting it on your shelf until you're ready to use it. But this process of thinking through who you are, what your role in the organization is, what your role in the work world is, and being ready to act on it can be rinse and repeat, wash, rinse, and repeat several times. You can use this process and should use this process consistently throughout your career. So acting, you got to act on it. Here's a question I ask. I say, okay, if the big question is, what do you want to do next? What do you want to do next? That's a simple question, but I also understand it's not easy to answer. What do you want to do next? Once you have some level of clarity on that, I want to do more of this, I want to do less of this, I want to pivot over here, I want to change over here. The next question, just to simplify this whole process, is, can I get it where I am? Can I get it where I am? I know what I want to do. Can I get it where I am? Now, if you're working at Boeing and you've decided you want to be a zookeeper, you really can't. I mean, but if there's something you want to move from engineering into logistics or operations management, I bet you have a lot of opportunities to do that. But you have to get clear, as we've walked through, what it is why. I want to do that because it sounds cool. It does not work. It really needs to be because here are my skills. Here's how people see me. Here's how it aligns with where this organization's going. Here's where I think I'd be good at it. Here's my strengths. So you have to, once you get clear on what it is you need from your network, you've got to comfortably ask for it. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is way easier than you think, way easier. And you will get better at it. I was in human resources until 1997. So at that time I was 37 and I did not know any of this stuff. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand networking. I had none of this. All this is what I've learned in the last 25 years. So you are not too old to learn to be good at this. And I am exponentially better at this than I was 10, 15 years ago. So you can get better at it. You may never love it, but you can get better at it. So having a conversation with your boss that says, here's what I've learned about myself. Here's how I think this organization can benefit. I would like to have your help or the help of whoever is appropriate in this organization so that I can move toward this. Is this something that you can support? No, Fred, we need you here. You're not going to move for 20 years. There you have your answer. So the first question is, what do you want? The second question is, can I get it here? And sometimes working for a small company, you have fewer opportunities. But sometimes I find that some of the bigger companies are the ones that are the most rigid about moving. And so the question is, can I get it here? If so, you engage in what we're talking about, this whole process. Into number 7. I'm going to advocate for myself inside this organization. If the answer is no, I know what I want and I can't get it here, then you have a decision to make. Is it time for me to go? Or is there something else I can get inside this organization that's going to work for me? And you might be in a spot where you say, I know what I want to do. I know I can't get it here, but I also know that I can't leave right now for whatever reason, or I don't want to, whatever. That's okay. Remember, we're playing a long game here. We're not playing, you got to go out and do this stuff immediately, but you do have to start moving toward it, because what you don't want to do is go, well, I know what I want to do. I can't get it here. And then you go back to work and 20 years passes by and you're absolutely miserable. That's not okay. I've sat across the desk from those people, and that's a horrible place. That's a horrible place to be in. So if you find that you are in that spot, don't give up on that. Just set yourself a runway. When would I be able to pursue that? When would the things in my life that are holding me back from pursuing what I want, when might those things ease up? Maybe it's you have kids in college, and so you can't do something different for another 2 or 3 years. Look at your life, big picture, and figure out what is the runway that you're operating with, and start to plan toward that. Just hanging on to something until the day you can't take it anymore is a horrible place to live. It's a horrible, horrible place to live. I've worked with too many of those people, and they're like, they're hollow-eyed because they're so miserable. It's like they've been wearing shoes that were the wrong size for so long that their ankles, their knee, their hips, they're walking funny, and they're just mean to everybody around them because they're unhappy. What happens when you get so deep into a career unhappiness? It is so hard to see your way out, and you start to convince yourself that it's normal, that that's normal. So at this point, you should have, so after our 7 steps, if you go through this Career Catalyst program, you'll have a career positioning statement, a reputation statement, clarity on your value. Why am I important here? Both in your organization and in the market. You will have an understanding of what's important to you personally and professionally. And you will have some short and long term, and it might even be 6 months versus 3 to 5 years, career goal statements with your necessary steps. And you will have put together your networking plan, and you will be ready to start having those conversations. So this is a career management framework that everybody should operate from, versus what we normally do, which is, I'm going to go try this job over here. Well, that looks fun. And then pretty soon we have 3 or 4 bad jobs back to back. And you're just at that point, you just have, you're seen in the market as having bad judgment. And so you want to always move intentionally. So what I've shown you, what I've walked you through is my Career Catalyst program. It is 3.5 hours of content. If you've had enough of me, I totally understand. But if you haven't, I'm walk you through this whole process going deep. There are workbooks, case studies, big questions, and the result is a 1-page career plan. You will end up with a 1-page career plan that you can use to guide your decisions about your next move and or a discussion with your leader. It's yours to keep forever. You can go through it 1,000 times if you want to get unstuck and point you in the right direction. Typically, we charge $247, but I'm giving IEEE members a 20% discount through the end of the month. And so you can get all of this deep workbook, case studies, career plan for $197. And that's much less than you'd pay for a good resume redo or even an hour with a career coach. So I want to make this available to you because, my goal is to spread career happiness and train everybody to get it. Also, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to do so. I am more than happy to accept connections and follow me. So I'll put other offers up there from people who've been in on this webinar. We have time for questions. I said would go till 2:45, and then we can answer your questions until 3 o'clock. If you, for any reason, have trouble getting Career Catalyst and you want to, send me a note or send Jonathan or somebody at IEEE a note, and I'll send it to you. But we just built it last year, and I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of it. My goal is just everybody be career happy. It's just how I go through the day. And so I want that for you as well. So this is 3.5 hours of me and my stuff. Again, that may be attractive to you and maybe not, and that's okay too. So Jonathan, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do, Julie. And first off, thank you so much. Folks, definitely be sure to check out thebaukeGroup.com and check out what you can get from the Career Catalyst program. This is definitely a great deal, so I wouldn't miss out on it. So, Julie, we do have a question from one of our audience members. Folks, we are at the Q&A segment of the webinar. Please post your questions in the live chat and comment section, and we'll load them onto the stream for Julie to answer. So, this question from our audience member, Alice. Alice asks, what goes into repairing relationships as opposed to just starting over a whole new network of relationships?
I would say repair. It doesn't necessarily have to be you had a big falling out, but I would say reestablish. Reestablish. Hey, so let's start with reestablish first. Hey, Jane, we haven't spoken, and I thought about you because blah blah blah. I'd love to get caught up in your career and tell you what's going on with mine. It can be that simple. Most people are thrilled to hear from you. If there's somebody in your network that you really feel like this person is key to your career and you want to reestablish that relationship, the best thing to do is say, hey, so-and-so, I know that when I left the XYZ company, you were disappointed. You were disappointed that I left. And I really do appreciate the fact that you recruited me there and were so good to me for 2 to 3 years. I just wanted to circle back and say that I really did appreciate that. And I'd love to get reconnected. If it was something really bad, like you stole something from them or something like that, I don't know, maybe it's time to move on and build a new network. But I would say if this is mostly about reestablishing, I think we all have those people in our background that we say, that relationship didn't end like I wanted it to. And you have to decide how to go back across that bridge if you want to, what your part in that was. Is an apology necessary? Is it, can you help them with something? I think people are much more forgiving than we give them credit for. So I think when you look back over your network and over your time in your career, maybe just go back and review who are the key people and are there any, who there do you want to reestablish with, and at least start with those before you go down that, maybe trying to build something that was, sometimes it's irretrievably broken, but mostly that's going to be about reestablishing.
For sure. I think we can all agree that a lot of people tend to not necessarily lose those connections because things went wrong, but simply just because we have so much going on in our lives. I really like the use of the word reestablish instead of repairing. So Alice, thanks for that. Thanks for that question. So folks, I think we're still waiting on questions from our audience members. So Julie, in the meantime,
Yeah, can I go back to Alice for a second? I had an
absolutely.
experience a few years ago where I was going through a really, really, really tough time in my life, and everything just sort of fell by the wayside. And I remember specifically that there was a person who reached out to me twice, and I just didn't respond. I was going through the shit so much, excuse me. And I just wasn't capable of really engaging. I just wasn't. And so that was probably 3 years ago. It was during COVID. And a few weeks ago, I saw she was putting some really nice positive comments on some of my LinkedIn posts. And so I thought, so I'm thinking she's like, I can't believe she never got back to me. And I remember it specifically because I'm really good at getting back to people. I usually don't forget that. But she's like making nice comments. I'm like, okay. So I feel like if I wanted to recross that bridge with her, I could absolutely do that. And I'd probably say, hey, I know you reached out to me a couple times a few years ago. It was a really tough time. And she'd be like, oh my God, don't even worry about it. So I think we get ourselves in a hole where we start to awfulize and imagine that things are much worse than they are. And so I just suggest that you just step out and try. If they don't respond, well, then you have your answer, or they're like me and just going through something.
For sure. Thank you for that insight. Sorry, I was muted. This next question, Mustafa asks, this might be for part one, but how do you explore what you want to do? I'm a test engineer, not sure if I'd prefer to work in PCB design, power, computer software, etc.
The only way you figure that out, and a lot of times, especially if you're more introverted, we think if I just think about it long enough, hard enough, then I will have the answer. But The only way to figure that out is to get out there and start connecting with people and start finding. So in this example, I know there's probably lots of people listening who are like, I know what I'd do based on what I said today, which is find people, get super clear, Mustafa, and this is why Career Catalyst would be great for you, because it's going to walk you through those first several parts where you own and engage and really lean into who you are and what you're great at. Once you know what that is, and you're ready to discuss that, I would find people on LinkedIn, in your company, maybe in your alumni network, in IEEE, that are in PCB design, are in power, are in computer software. And those are just the 3 examples you gave. Find people who are currently doing it. And you would say to them, hi, I am currently a test engineer, but as I look at the next phase in my career, I'm looking at ways I can pivot and use my skills in a different way. Right now, I'm interested in PCB design, power, and computer software. And I see that you've had your career in PCB design. Would you be willing to get on a Zoom call with me and tell me a little bit about your career and whether you think someone with my background would be a great fit? I hope you're writing that down. That was darn good. That's what we do. We reach out to people who are already where we want to be, people who've already been to Omaha, in my example, and we ask, and given my background and what I'm good at, and you really need to be ready with this, which is what Career Catalyst prepares you for, what you get from that is they're like, oh, this guy's prepared, he's self-aware, I understand what his background is, I understand his why he wants to do PCB design. Of course I'm willing to give this guy a conversation. And he might say, well, Mustafa, what I see is you're really good at these 3 things. There's a couple things we do in PCB design that you'd have to get up to speed with pretty quickly. Now you know what a gap is. Now you understand what one of your gaps are. And so how might I do that? Maybe there's an online course. Maybe it's something that they train at his company. So thinking that it's just going to come to you, the longer you sit and stare, just doesn't work. You have to get out there and actively get super clear on who you are. How are you going to reach out to people? And once you go through those first few steps where you're willing to reach out, say who you are, what your value is, et cetera, believe me, your confidence in making these connections will soar because you know why you're contacting them. You know who you are, because as we all know, one of the first things they're going to ask you is, tell me about yourself. And what do most of us do? Blah, 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 blah. We stammer because that's such a big question. And that's what we walk through in part 1. And also Career Catalyst goes really deep into that. And then you start getting out and connecting with people. You could probably on IEEE put questions on your, in the communities or on the boards. And you'd have tons of people saying, hey, we're looking for PCB design engineers, power engineers, send me your resume. So you've got to be ready. You've already moved down the funnel and said, okay, I was here and I want to be here. Now I need to learn about these things so I can go here. And you might learn about PCB design, power, computer software, and go, yes, power is what I want. That's what I want. Now, all of a sudden, you know how to conduct a search. You're out there looking at LinkedIn for job postings. You have your language around how your work as a test engineer is valuable in the power engineering space. And you've got your campaign, and that's really what it is. This is the only way to go through this, just going out there and saying, I'm just going to put my resume out there and hope that some little birdie picks it up and runs away with it and takes it to a company that's looking for someone like me is foolish and frustrating. And then you're never going to get what you want. And so this is the process that you follow to get more of what you want, whether it's where you are or elsewhere.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like just in regards to getting anything that you want in anything, it does take a bit of initiative on your part. And usually from what I've been told, that taking that first step to anything is usually the hardest part for a reason. But
yeah, but it's honestly, I'm going to use this word, it's kind of fun once you get started. Once you start to recognize what your value is and other people go, yeah, that's great. Oh my God, that's wonderful. I find sometimes people with the most amazing, impressive backgrounds, you tell them that and they're like, oh, really? Oh, I don't know. You're like, oh my God, look at you. And so I think leaning into what's great about ourselves and what we've done that's good, and being willing to share that is not bragging. If you do it the right way and if you have the goods to back it up. So I think getting better at that. And I'm gonna tell you, it's hard. It's hard. And look, I teach this stuff. It's hard for me. I mean, I always jokingly say, my example I always use is I'm a good parallel parker, because I am. And last Sunday, some friends were coming down here for the Bengals game, and I wanted to give them my spot. So I took my car out front and I saw this old tiny parking spot, and I got in it. Now I was sweating, and I wanted to gather all my neighbors around me to marvel at my amazing parking space. But so even sometimes, even saying I'm a good parallel parker, it feels weird because we've conditioned not to talk like that. But if you don't advocate for yourself and you aren't clear what your strengths are, which is what Career Catalyst walks you through, nobody's going to believe you. People want to know. They want to know how to help you, and they can't know how to help you till they know who you are. And you can't tell them who you are till you know who you are. See, it all fits together, but you've got to get started.
Really great insight. Thank you, Julie. And thanks for that question, Mustafa. This next question, Stephen asks, do you have any tips for developing a closer relationship with people, i.e. transitioning from a colleague to an advocate or mentor?
One of the things that I find really helpful is to be really clear. So when people say, well, I have a mentor, I say, okay, my theory is we need a team. Because think about it this way, okay? So when I want somebody, when I'm having, a tough moment, and I might go to somebody who I know is going to be very sympathetic. But sometimes I know I need my butt kicked. So I'm not going to go to that person. Oh, who's going to say, you're just doing fine. I'm going to go to a person who's like, boom. If I need help with thinking through a presentation, how to approach it, there's someone I go to. If I want to figure out how to develop my Instagram presence, which I'm in the process of doing, I would go to a different person. So the idea that one mentor, one colleague, one advocate has to be that one person has to be everything to you, that's never going to work, because there isn't somebody who's going to be a good advocate. So I would look at it this way, Stephen. I would say, okay, what are my goals? What am I trying to learn? And what kind of qualities or knowledge would people have who I need to help me? I would go to that person. If, let's say, you've got somebody who's a colleague and say they're in rung 2 and you're trying to bring them into colleague 1, I would go to them and just say, excuse me, look, I really admire how you do this. How when we're in a department meeting, you are great at getting people to understand what the goal is and keep people on track. I really would like to be a leader in this organization. And I know that that's a skill that I need to develop. And you're so good at it. I'm wondering, would you be willing to mentor me or teach me or show me or tell me what you do that makes your meeting so effective? So my advice is be as specific as possible on what you admire in them. Be clear about what you're asking. Will you just be my mentor? People are like, I don't have time. And they're thinking, do you mean like 4 hours a month? Be really clear. When you're specific, be complimentary and clear. I'd like to learn how to run meetings better because I know I'm not good at it and you're great at it. Could I get some tips from you on how to do that? First of all, that's so flattering. So flattering. People are like, yes, I'm happy. Here's how I learned it. And here's what I do. Most people are so flattered and happy to help. Then you say in response, look, thank you. That was so helpful, blah, blah, blah. Would you mind if we checked in once a quarter and I share with you what I learned? In the meantime, if you need anything, here's some things I'm good at. So what you do is you really lean into that mutual benefit part. Tell people what you admire about them and ask them for help. Would you mind if I came to you once in a while if I have a question on this? Or could I sit through a meeting? Could I sit with you as you prep for a meeting? No, I'd be happy to show you how I get ready. People don't get acknowledged and complimented enough. And when they do, generally they're so flattered, they're really willing to help. Now, of course, it needs to be sincere. But the only way to do that is to really build into the relationship, but do it intentionally so that you're being very clear, not just because you have a big job and I want to ride your coattails to the top. That doesn't work. It needs to be authentic.
Hmm. Thanks, Julie. And I hope that answered your question, Stephen. So we are at the end of the hour. Julie, we'll finish off with this one last question from our audience member. Edgar asks, any suggestions for people who have recently retired and are not sure about going back into the workforce? So I'm guessing contemplating going back into the workforce, but not sure yet.
Yeah, I love this. As a person who's about your age, Edgar, one of the things that we saw after COVID, as people came back to work, boomers retired at a faster clip than they had in a long time. And my theory is that they did that because COVID yanked them out of the 8 to 5 office. And they worked from home and said, wait a minute, I can do this. Well, wait a minute. And I can have lunch with my spouse or my friends and I can see my grandkids. More of that, please. And so when we saw boomers start to come back, they didn't come back the same way. They didn't come back into a full-time 8 to 5. I have to be in the office every day. What they did was they figured out what else they wanted to do, what else they were capable of. It's a really, frankly, Edgar, it's a really nice middle step from where you were to where you're going to be. So what I would do is start with a blank page. First of all, there's a book called From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks. That's wonderful. He's a Harvard professor, but it walks you through moving into that phase of life, which is a lot harder than most people think it is. And then I would step back and say, okay, I could stay connected to my professional self by working part-time or contract or consulting a couple days a week. I'm going to try that. But what else? What else am I going to surround it with? Do I really like? Am I somebody who's good with my hands? Might I like to help people out at Home Depot one day a week? Might I want to start a little, coach, teach some lessons or coach kids on something? Might I want to start to write a book? So this is a time when you start to go like this and you start to consider all of your options. So yeah, I would step back and start with a blank piece of paper and say, how do I want to spend my time? I saw this quote, I forget who it was from, but I saw this yesterday. It said, how do I want to most profoundly use what's left of my life? And that's the kind of question that you go, oh, that's a big question. But I think when you get to our age, that's what you have to start thinking of. How do I most profoundly want to use what's left of my life? Is there a reason for me to keep working? Or are there other sides of myself I want to explore? You have to almost have a childlike, playful approach to it because there is such a, you've been so familiar and comfortable and efficient and competent. You're heading into the world of learning again. It can be, so maybe just to kind of split the difference a little bit, look for something you can do that's related to your career 2 to 3 days a week and try some other things on other days. And then you'll know whether that's the right combination or not. And so it's really kind of a trial and error process. I've been through it and I still work pretty much full time, but I've tried other things too. I took an improv class earlier this year that was really fun. I was the oldest person in there by like 30 years, but it didn't matter. So I would suggest if you want to keep one foot in what you do, start playing with some other things that catch your eye.
Really great. Thank you, Julie. And Edgar, thanks for your question. So, folks, we are out of time. Again, this has been a really great series. I hope you all enjoyed it. Julie, thank you so much for joining us today and providing your 7 steps to attaining and maintaining a fulfilling
and
career.
Please, if you're on Instagram, please follow me because I'm trying to do more of that. And I just started a series we're looking to brand it, but for Gen Z. Calling it something like Not Your Parents' Career Advice. So follow me everywhere you can find me because we're going to be putting a lot of great content out. And thank you, Jonathan, for your help in keeping me on track.
Absolutely. And thank you to our audience for tuning in and for your great questions as well. Oh, actually, Julie, real quick, one of our audience members asks, name the book. Is it From Strength to Strength?
From Strength to Strength.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alice, for adding that. Thank you. And folks, as Julie mentioned during the webinar, you can use code IEEE to get 20% off Julie's Career Catalyst program until November 30th. It's a resource worth looking into and can possibly enhance your own career journey. So, yeah, really be
Thanks,
sure to check
everybody.
that out. And I believe we will also include that in the feedback email that we send after this broadcast ends. If you like the content presented in today's webinar, be sure to check out our other webinars, which you can find on IEEE USA's channels at IEEE USA, as well as this series. And please like and subscribe to our channels and check back daily on social media for future live stream updates. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great day.